In this third module, we will discuss the Buddha's teachings on dealing with anger. Dealing with your own anger leads to harmony. Dealing with the anger of others leads to harmony. It is obvious that dealing with anger is very important to harmony. Among the mental defilements disruptive to harmony, probably the most destructive is anger. In his wonderful book, Curbing Anger, Spreading Love, Bhikkhu Visuddhacharya lists 16 practical antidotes for anger and introduces the cultivation of loving kindness as a meditation practice. I will give a quick summary of his 16 antidotes for anger with quotes from the suttas. First rule, mindfulness. Mindfulness is being aware of what is happening at the present moment. Mindfulness is the best guard against anger and all bad states of mind. When anger arises, quickly press the pause button and reflect, anger has arisen, or simply note, anger. Mindfulness can help stop the mind from spinning out of control with anger. When there is mindfulness, the mind is watching itself rather than whatever triggered the anger. Pressing the pause button allows us to respond to the trigger in a wise way, not in an unwise way. The remaining 15 antidotes on this list must all start with mindfulness. Sense objects are the bait on Mara's hook. If you swallow the bait, you will be captured by Mara. Mara is the personification of temptation, but objects of the senses, especially thoughts, can also hook us by triggering anger. Mindfulness stops us from blindly reacting to the bait that appears in front of us. The Buddha used mindfulness as part of an analogy. Suppose that there were a fortress with strong walls and 6 gates. In it would be a wise, experienced, intelligent gatekeeper to keep out those he didn't know and to let in those he did. The fortress stands for this body. The 6 gates stand for the 6 senses: eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind. The gatekeeper stands for mindfulness. In other words, the role of mindfulness is to stand guard to protect the body and the mind from objects, such as thoughts, that trigger bad states of mind. Mindfulness guards the senses. In the past 20 years or so, mindfulness-based stress reduction has gained a lot of popularity around the world. MBSR was developed based on Theravada Buddhist meditation practices. Training the mind to be more mindful is a proven way of reducing stress in one's life. On the internet, I found some practical tips on incorporating mindfulness into daily activities to develop the habit of mindfulness. When having a shower, be mindful of the wave of pleasure as the warm water washes over you. Mindful of the smell of the shower gel, soap, or shampoo. When brushing your teeth, be mindful of your arm moving from side to side and the sound of the brush against your teeth. Mindful of each and every tooth and the sensation of the brush against the gums. When commuting to work, be mindful of your environment and the tendency to resist it. Be mindful of the emotions as they rise and fall, come and go. Mindful of all the different senses. When standing in a queue, be mindful of your reaction when you first see the queue. Mindful of your posture as you stand there waiting. Mindful of your breath as you focus on the physical sensations in the body. When washing the dishes, be mindful of picking up one thing at a time and taking just an extra second or two to clean it thoroughly. Mindful of the passing thoughts and of letting them go. The next antidote is firm resolution in maintaining tranquility. If we make a consistent effort to maintain tranquility, it's less likely that we'll be carried away by turbulent emotions such as anger. Maintaining tranquility will impact our thoughts, impact our speech, and impact our actions. With handphones and the internet, life seems to be becoming much more hectic. Many people feel that the rapidly changing external environment can cause their attention span to be shorter. But actually, the Buddha said that a restless, agitated mind is one of the hindrances or barriers to spiritual development. The Buddha recommended 2 types of meditation to train the mind: tranquility meditation and insight meditation. Here is how the Buddha described the difference between the two. These 2 qualities have a share in clear knowing. Which 2? Tranquility, or samatha, and insight, vipassana. When tranquility is developed, what purpose does it serve? The mind is developed. And when the mind is developed, what purpose does it serve? Passion is abandoned. When insight is developed, what purpose does it serve? Discernment is developed. And when discernment is developed, what purpose does it serve? Ignorance is abandoned. So what did the Buddha mean by tranquility? Here's another sutta in which the Buddha gave advice to monks seeking tranquility. Approach an individual who has attained tranquility, samatha, and ask him, how should the mind be steadied? How should it be made to settle down? How should it be unified? How should it be composed? In other words, a tranquil mind is one that has been steadied, settled down, unified, and composed. Now, there are two main objects used in Buddhist tranquility meditation, the breath and loving kindness or metta. We will explore metta in more detail later in this talk. The next anecdote is, consider the Buddha's fine example. Here is a sutta showing how the Buddha reacted to anger. A certain Brahmin was angry with the Buddha, and the Brahmin abused and scolded the Buddha. Here is how the Buddha replied. When friends, relatives, and guests visit you, do you offer them food? Well, yes, sometimes I do. If they do not accept the food, to whom does the food belong? Well, in that case, the food still belongs to me. So too, Brahmin, I, who do not abuse or scold anyone, refuse to accept your abuse and scolding. It still belongs to you, Brahmin. The Buddha continued, one who repays an angry man with anger thereby makes things worse for himself. Not repaying an angry man with anger, one wins a battle that is hard to win. He practices for the welfare of both, his own and the others, when, knowing that his foe is angry, he mindfully maintains his peace. He achieves the cure of both, his own and the others. I feel that these words of the Buddha are very powerful. The Buddha was once asked, what is the one thing whose killing you approve? Having slain anger, one sleeps soundly. Having slain anger, one does not sorrow. The killing of anger with its poison root and honeyed tip, this is the killing the noble ones praise. For having slain anger, one does not sorrow. Poison root refers to the damage that anger does to the individual. Honeyed tip refers to how anger feels good when it feeds the ego. The Buddha told a story about how Sakka, the king of the Devas, responded with patience to nasty insults from his enemy. One of the Devas questioned Sakka's approach. Are you afraid or weak that you tolerate hearing such insulting words from the mouth of your enemy? I am neither afraid nor weak, yet I tolerate my enemy. Why should a wise man be provoked by a fool? A fool will become angrier if no one puts a stop to him. The wise should restrain the fool using a mighty stick. The only thing that will stop the fool is, knowing well the other's anger, one is mindful and remains calm. This tolerance of yours is a mistake. When a fool thinks, he tolerates me out of fear, the fool will become more aggressive, like a bull who chases one who flees. Let him think whatever he likes. Among ideals, there is nothing better than patience. The strong should tolerate the weak. This is the highest patience. It is wrong to fight anger with anger. Not returning anger with anger, one wins a double victory. He behaves for the good of both, himself and the other person. Knowing the other's anger, he is mindful and stays calm. In this way, he heals both, himself and the other person. People who think he's a fool for showing patience don't understand the Dhamma, the natural law of the world. In my opinion, there would be more harmony in the world if there were more leaders like Mahatma Gandhi and the Dalai Lama, and fewer leaders like Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un. But world leaders are outside of my circle of influence. If I want harmony in my life, I must focus on making sure that I have patience. When my wife scolds me, I rarely get angry. I know that fighting fire with fire just leads to a bigger fire. I try to follow the Buddha's example. When I am being mindful, I can reflect, she is in pain. I can hear the pain in her voice. Anger is always accompanied by a painful mental feeling. I have caused the pain. The trigger may have been something small, but this pain has accumulated. I need to change. I need to build up new habit. This will take commitment, mindfulness, and energy. The next anecdote is, consider that we must all die one day. Actually, this is based on a quote taken from the Dhammapada. There are those who do not realize that one day we all must die, but those who do realize this do not quarrel. The Buddha reminded us to reflect on death to create a sense of spiritual urgency and to keep our focus on the present moment, not in the past or in the future. Mindfulness keeps us in the present moment. You cannot be mindful of the past, and you cannot be mindful of the future. You shouldn't chase after the past or place expectations on the future. What is past is left behind. The future is as yet unreached. Whatever quality is present, you clearly see right there. Not taken in, unshaken. That's how you develop the mind. Energetically doing what should be done today. For, who knows, tomorrow, death. There is no bargaining with death. Whoever lives this way, energetically, relentlessly, both day and night, has truly had an auspicious day. So if you keep your mind clearly anchored in the present moment, whatever has triggered the anger has already passed. The next anecdote is, Consider the harmful effects of anger on oneself. Here are some quotes about the harmful effects of anger from the Visuddhimagga, an encyclopedia of Theravada Buddhism written about 1600 years ago. If you get angry at him, then maybe you make him suffer, maybe not. Though with the mental suffering that anger brings, you are certainly punishing yourself now. Imagine that you're driving and somebody cuts you off. You get angry at the other driver, but the other driver has no idea that you're angry. What is absolutely certain is that you are causing harm to yourself. Being angry is not healthy. By getting angry, you are like a man who wants to hit another and picks up a burning ember or excrement in his hand, so first burns himself or makes himself stink. Anger burns you and makes you stink. Anger first harms you, and it may or may not have an impact on the other person. By getting angry, you are like a man who throws dust at another against the wind and only covers himself with it. Getting angry harms your body. Getting angry creates a bad habit that can lead to more anger in the future. Getting angry also creates bad karma. This anger that you entertain is gnawing at the very roots of all the virtues that you guard. Who is there such a fool as you? In other words, anger gets in the way of your spiritual development. Another does bad deeds, so you are angry. So do you want to then copy too the sort of acts he commits? The modern saying is, don't stoop down to his level. Anger. Punishment we give ourselves for somebody else's mistake. How true. According to the Buddhist analysis of the mind in the Abhidhamma, anger always arises together with delusion. Because of delusion or mental blindness, anger has the opportunity to arise. Delusion or mental blindness means not having wise attention, not seeing things as they truly are. So here's an example. Imagine that you're driving in a hurry to get somewhere and somebody cuts you off in traffic. Immediately, anger arises. If you had wise attention and recognized that the act of cutting you off had already passed, you would not get angry. Will getting angry at something that's already happened change anything? If you had wise attention and recognized that things always don't work out the way you want them to, you wouldn't get angry. If you had wise attention and recognized that anger arose naturally because of conditions, external conditions such as the other driver, and internal conditions such as your hurry to get somewhere, then you wouldn't get angry. According to the Abhidhamma, anger always arises together with shamelessness. Going back to the anger that arose after being cut off in traffic, imagine that there were a thought bubble above your head that showed what was going through your mind. Wouldn't you be embarrassed if other people could see this? Imagine that you lost control and swore at the other driver and that your young child was sitting next to you. Wouldn't you be embarrassed if that happened? Now, just because other people don't know that you're angry doesn't mean that you shouldn't be ashamed of it. According to the Abhidhamma, anger always arises together with a disregard for karma. Another aspect of wise attention is an appreciation of karma. If you had wise attention and recognized that a moment of anger creates bad karma and reinforces a habit of anger that makes it easier for anger to arise in the future, then you wouldn't get angry. These two bright qualities guard the world. Conscience, which is the opposite of shamelessness, and concern for the results of bad actions. This is the opposite of disregard for karma. If these two bright qualities did not guard the world would be immersed in promiscuity. Actually, the Buddha identified these two factors as guardians of the world. Anger is aversion to the present situation, remorse is aversion to a past situation, and fear is aversion to a future situation. All three of these share a common root. Anger, remorse, and fear are closely related. None of them lead to harmony. The next antidote is look into a mirror. An angry person is a very ugly person. If you were to see your contorted face in the mirror when you are angry, you wouldn't want to look at yourself. Perhaps all of us should carry a small mirror in our pocket so that every time we get angry, we can quickly have a good look at ourselves. That might be an instant antidote to quelling the anger inside us. When a person is angry and easily upset, even when lightly criticized, after death, this person may be ugly, wherever reborn. This is the way leading to ugliness, to be angry and easily upset even when lightly criticized. Now, in this sutta, the Buddha is explaining the workings of karma. Anger leads to ugliness, both in this existence and potentially in the next existence. The next antidote is, consider that we are all owners of our deeds. There are 5 ways of subduing hatred. One should develop goodwill for that individual. One should develop compassion for that individual. One should develop equanimity for that individual. One should ignore that individual. Or one should reflect, he is the owner of his karma. He is heir to his karma, originates from his karma, is bound to his karma and has karma as his refuge. Owner of his karma means that karma follows him from life to life. Heir of his karma means that he inherited karma from past existence. Originated from his karma means that he was born because of karma. Bound to his karma means that he's never separated from his karma. Has karma as his refuge means that he must rely on his karma for future rebirths. In other words, reflect on the importance of karma and that the person who is causing you to be angry is creating bad karma for themselves. But we should also consider that by getting angry, we are creating bad karma for ourselves as well. The next antidote is consider their good points. The other person may have helped us in some way or other before. When we recall their good qualities and things that they may have done for us before, we can soften up and cool down. Also, we should remember that nobody is perfect and that we have our faults too. It's easy to see the errors of others, but hard to see your own. If you focus on the errors of others, constantly finding fault, your defilements flourish. So consider other people's good points. This instills a habit of looking at the positive aspects of people, seeing the glass as half full rather than half empty. The next antidote is freeze. Whenever we're angry, we should not act or say anything. For in that frame of mind, what we do or say is likely to be bad, something we will regret later. Then, even when we say sorry later on, it will be too late, for the harm has already been done. The person who is hurt might not be able to change their attitude or feelings towards us. Whenever anger arises, we should freeze and be like a block of ice. Only after we have quelled the anger should we do or say anything. He who checks rising anger as a charioteer checks a rolling chariot, him I call a true charioteer. Others only hold the reins. A person who is capable of curbing sudden anger is like the true expert charioteer who restrains a chariot rushing out of control. Other charioteers merely hold the reins. The next antidote to consider is, nobody is free from blame. Indeed, this is an ancient practice, not one only of today. They blame those who remain silent. They blame those who speak much. They blame those who speak in moderation. There is none in the world who is not blamed. There never was, there never will be, nor is there now a person who is wholly blamed or wholly praised. Reminds me of the modern proverb, people in glass houses should not throw stones. The next antidote to consider, why are we angry? Often we are angry because of our own egos. People have strong egos, so they're in constant danger of being driven by anger. Here is the story of Saka, the king of the Devas, and an anger-eating demon. An anger-eating demon came and sat on Saka's throne. When the Devas complained, this caused the demon to become stronger. Saka arrived and said nice words to the anger-eating demon. The demon became weaker and disappeared. When I'm angry, I don't speak harshly and I don't praise my virtues. I keep myself well restrained out of regard for my own good. In my opinion, the Buddha is using an anger-eating demon as a metaphor for the ego. Is it not true that the ego feeds on anger? Think about this for a moment. Most people are very protective of their egos. How does your perspective change if you think of your ego as an anger-eating demon? The Buddha recognized that getting angry brings some satisfaction to the ego, but that anger bounces back on oneself, bringing harm to oneself and destroying harmony. This is why in the earlier quote, the Buddha described anger as having a poisoned root and a honeyed tip. Albert Einstein once said, more the knowledge, lesser the ego. Less of the knowledge, more the ego. He may have been referring to scientific knowledge, but in my opinion, this also applies to self-knowledge. The next antidote to consider is, who are you angry with? What is it that you're angry with? Which part of the body are you angry with? When you break the person into components, anger finds no foothold, like trying to paint the air. Mental states last but a moment's time. These components have ceased. So now what are you angry with? This is what happens when you consider, who am I angry with? The next antidote is to consider that we're all related. It's not easy to find a being who has not previously been your mother, your father, your brother, your sister, your son, or your daughter. For what reason? Because these rounds of rebirth are without discoverable beginning. It is possible that the person with whom you are angry was your relative in a past existence, and that your experiences in that past existence have made you extra sensitive to what this person says or does today. The next antidote is forgiveness. One of the reasons for our anger is often our inability to forgive and forget. In the Vinaya, the Buddha laid out instructions for monks to help them to forgive and forget. When a monk does something wrong, the first step in every case is an acknowledgement of the wrongdoing. When a monk confesses to an offense, such as having insulted another monk, he first admits to having said the insult. Then he agrees that the insult really was an offense. Finally, he promises to restrain himself from repeating the offense in the future. I think you can see how sincerely following these steps can help the injured party to truly forgive. Now, although directed at monks, these instructions embody principles that apply to anyone seeking reconciliation of differences. Sincerely forgiving and forgetting is a practice that we should do towards others and also towards ourselves. The next antidote is to review the benefits of loving kindness. In the last talk, I showed the Buddha's list of 11 benefits of loving kindness. They are so important that I'm going to show them again, but not going to read them out again. The final antidote is to give a gift. This is particularly useful when trying to deal constructively with the anger of another person. Start by empathizing with the other person's situation. The angry person doesn't know the good. The angry person doesn't see the Dhamma. There is just blindness and dense gloom when anger overcomes a person. The best gift that you can give to an angry person is the gift of the Dhamma. And I don't mean just to pass them a book. In the last talk, I quoted a sutta, the gift of Dhamma is foremost. Many years ago, I had a misunderstanding with someone at work who was in a lower position than I was. He was angry at me. We met and had a discussion to resolve the misunderstanding, but I could tell that though his brain understood what had happened, his heart was still hurting. The next day, I came in early, brought in a muffin, and put it on his desk without saying anything. After a while, he realized who had given him the muffin, and he felt a lot better. So in summary, dealing with your own anger leads to harmony. Dealing with the anger of others also leads to harmony. I hope that in the future you may be able to use one or more of these antidotes to anger to increase the amount of harmony in your life. Now is the time for questions and answers.